Hey folks, it's your main man Sabado back in action, back again. And today I just want to share with you some of the reflections that I've had. It seems like when you retire or whenever you go through a major life change, you think that things are all going to come to you at once. And the funny thing is that they don't. They come to you at different times, different cycles, different periods of time, or the impetus for new thought or for growth or for evolution. It's not on a timetable. And so this week I had some reflections that I think I'm going to share with you because I think they're important. And it was interesting because as I was thinking about this episode, I just couldn't get this lyric out of my head. I feel like my life is cheating me. For the first time in my life, I was getting money and it was like my conscience was eating me. It's like there's all this good stuff happening when you find financial independence, when you don't have to go into the rat race, when you don't have to do all of those things that you had to do in the past. But it's weird because it still feels weird. It's this unsettling feeling. And so I'm starting to settle in, but there's a lot of revelations, a lot of thoughts, a lot of processing that goes into getting to a place of comfort. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not uncomfortable, and I'm not in a place where I'm going to start telling people that I wish I made a different decision, because that's just not the case. But there's just a lot to it. There's a lot of there. And so we'll talk to you a little bit about kind of my life in the sunshine, my life in the sunshine. Rest in peace, Roy Ayers. Another great one, gone but not forgotten. Holmes, I still feel you. So first I want to talk about the last 15 weeks. The last 15 weeks, I've been in the Master Gardener program, and I've talked about it. I know leading up to it, I talked about it a lot in some of the earlier videos. I started a gardening series that somebody asked about in a comment last week. And so I just thought I would start off and lead with kind of this last 15 weeks. And it's interesting because one of the things that I talk about in an earlier video is that finding social activities and finding activities to do when you're retired. And I started to realize something, and I'll get to some of those revelations later, but this Master Gardener program, it was every 15 weeks. And on top of the class itself, which goes from 9 a.m. to 2:30 in the afternoon, there's also quizzes and homework. So I have to come home. I do homework usually on Thursday or Friday. I have quizzes that I have to do. They're all take home, so that means they're more difficult because you actually have to go in and look at the material. And I've got to read a bunch just to stay on top of a bunch of different topics, because the Master Gardener program is really the intersection between horticulture and botany. And so the science of the plants and the applied science of gardening. So but it's funny because when I got into the class, the first thing I noticed was that everybody in the class, maybe not everybody, but a majority of the people in the class saw this as their opportunity to meet new people, as an opportunity to network socially, as an opportunity maybe when I was in my 20s to go to the club. This is maybe the club for 70-year-old people because you just can't make it to the club. But seriously though, it's like this retired person social club, which is great. But it helped me really realize that I already have a social network, and so it helped me focus on the gardening piece of it. And today, ironically, I was able to take a lot of that applied stuff and use it in my own garden. I had to attend to my garden. We have, as I think I've mentioned in the past, like most houses in America, I guess, I have a front yard and I have a backyard. My backyard, I'm not going to say it's manicured because I'm not into the manicured look. But it's nice. It's where my garden is, where I grow my vegetables. I just harvested some carrots. I think it was 20 pounds of carrots. I harvested some what do you call them? Cabbages, purple cabbages. Harvesting snow peas. Harvesting all of my winter stuff and starting to put some summer stuff out there. So I've got watermelon out there. I've got cilantro going. I've got some basil, a couple of different types of basil. One of them is Tulsi basil. It's an Indian basil that's a little bit spicier, so I'm gonna try a little bit of that. Squash, summer squash, pumpkins, and so on. So there's a lot going on, but my backyard, my front yard gets no love. I got nothing but love for you, but my front yard gets no love. I have a bunch of hedges and bushes, and cats like to pee everywhere out there, and the kids like to walk inside of the rocks out there. So what I did today is I decided to show some love to the front yard. So I planted about 4 or 5 plants in the front. And I also hedged these hedges or these bushes that we have. So we have 2 bushes on either side of the backyard that are about 7 feet tall, and they just grow. They start off as these small baby bushes, and now they're these incredibly large bushes. And we're at the point in the year now where it goes from being warm to being incredibly hot. So today was 78 degrees. Next week at the same time it's supposed to be 92, and this isn't even the warm part of the year. So as you can imagine, it gets really hot. So the idea was, how do I get out there today and knock this out before it gets hot? And you could probably see, if you see any salt on my face or anything like that, I came in straight from that because I thought I was excited to come and tell you about what's going on. I was able to also do some drip system maintenance, and it's not really maintenance. So again, I like to be fully transparent. I actually screwed up the drip system. I was digging a hole, drip system cut the pipe, so I had to go in there and fix the pipe. And anybody that knows anything about fixing something that deals with water, or fixing water pipes, it's easy when you have a maze to go around, but it's hard when you cut something and it's like this, because you got to put the piece that goes on in the middle and be able to get those pieces to come back. And it was a whole thing. I got it fixed, got it going. Water's good. Plants look good. Front yard looks good. If you want to see a picture, let me know. I'll put a picture together. If you want to see anything from my gardening stuff, let me know, and I'll put pictures in there, because I'm not part of my goal here with everything isn't to have everything be perfectly manicured or to convey to you a perfect situation, but to show you that no matter how much we romanticize things in our head, there's still going to be there's still the human element. And it doesn't mean that it's less quality. It's just, if you focus on how things look as opposed to what they are, then you find yourself in a lot of scenarios. At least I found myself where you find yourself in a lot of scenarios where you're not keeping it real to yourself because you're too busy focusing on how things look. And also I've started to do a lot of reflecting on a few things. I've been thinking a lot about people. It's funny when you think about people. People are probably the easiest thing because there's so many of them, and we're so used to dealing with people. And some of us like dealing with people to varying degrees. But what I thought was interesting is when I think about my retirement and I think about the other retirees that I meet, and I think about some of the older people that I meet, a lot of people are looking at the past, wishing they would have done stuff different in the past. And that's hard for me because I've always been a person that said, in order to get the most out of life, you have to constantly be evolving. I'm not saying that you change for the sake of change, because I think that's a waste of time and has unintended consequences, but you're constantly evolving. So the loop that I was in 5 years ago isn't the loop that I'm in now. Who I was 5 years ago isn't who I am now. Who I was 3 years ago isn't who I am now. There's some things about me that are the same. I'm still loyal, still trustworthy, still do what I say I'm going to do, still like to talk, still like sharing ideas. So who I am, who Sabato is who Sabato has always been. But just the orientation to the world has changed because I'm just a different person. I've grown, I've evolved. I don't have the same stresses that I used to have. I used to have a lot of stress, both work stress and just personal stress that came possibly as an upshot of the work stress, but I don't have that anymore. And I'm not interested in going back to that. I'm not interested in going back and talking about work. I'm not interested in talking about stressful situations and dealing with stressful situations. And I'm not interested in dealing with people that don't make me happy. If a person is in my life and they don't make me happy, then I'm just not going to deal with them. And, I don't think we talk about that enough as men. As men, we don't talk about being happy. And I'm focused on just being happy. What makes me happy? What do I enjoy doing? What are the things that if I could wake up in the morning and do whatever I want to do, which i.e. is my current situation, what would I do? And so those are the things that I do. But you find people get caught into the loop, and a lot of times the stuff that people don't like, they continue to do it even though they don't like it, not because they feel like they have to, but it's the only thing they know, and they get caught into the loop. The other thing I've been really reflecting on, some of you may know that in the next few weeks, I'm going on vacation. We're going on Alaska cruise. And so when we go to Alaska, normally what happens is leading up to a vacation, I'm like all in it Bennett, trying to just get everything done, organize everything, make sure that things are set because I'm super excited. And I have to be honest with you. I mean, I'm excited about the trip because it's a bucket list trip and I enjoy spending time with my wife, but I don't have the same need to get away from home that I did when I was working, because every day I wake up and do what the hell I want to do anyway. I mean, are there days where I have to do stuff that maybe isn't the what I would have chosen under a different set of circumstances? Sure. I mean, we all have that. Look, it's still human, but I don't have this need to just get away. And then even coming back, I know when I went to Panama, when my wife and I went to Panama last year, we came back and the big thing was we didn't have to schedule or think about going back into work the next day. So it's a good thing, but then it takes away some of the excitement, because the excitement is the fact that you don't have to go to work. So, but again, if you want to see pictures from the Alaska trip, let me know. I'm actually thinking about trying to film a couple of episodes in Alaska, so that way you could see the glaciers and some of the wildlife and maybe some time on the train. But I just have this thing where in the world of YouTube and in the world of YouTube influencers, you got all these people that are trying to do, or I guess I'm trying to do what they're doing, which is share information on YouTube. But I think it's incredibly irritating to walk around and have people walking around with cameras in their faces all the time. So I would rather go out, experience life, deal with you, meet you, talk to you, get to know people, have experiences, come back and tell you about it, maybe show you a few pictures, than walk around with a camera in my face all day. Because I just think I don't want to be that person. And when I watch some YouTube videos, I realize that there are people on some of these videos that are that person. Now, I'm not hating on you, and I'm not talking bad about you. All I'm saying is that that's just not me. Because remember, I'm 6'8", and so at 6'8", I'm standing above everybody. So I'm not a face in the crowd. I'm the tree standing above the forest, if that makes any sense. So, but I'll put some stuff in there, and then I'll just thinking about things, just life in general and where people are and how unique this situation is. One thing I'll tell you is that I don't know that I fully ever appreciated the fact that I was able to retire early, because I'd spent so much of my life working my ass off, dealing with so much bullshit, that I just figured that this was the next step of the process. And as I've been retired longer and dealt with different people within my retirement, I start to realize how unique it actually is, which again, I am incredibly grateful for, which is one of the reasons why I think it's so important to share this information, because those of us out there that think it's impossible and we kind of romanticize the idea of what happens. What I'm hoping I convey is that life continues on the way life continues on. In work, you have a bunch of things that you're trying to shift and move and place and maneuver around and manipulate and so on. And so all that movement from its natural order is what creates stress. When you find financial independence, you're not worried about money anymore. And when you're retired, you're not worried about going to work anymore. And so there's a tendency, what I'm doing is I'm just letting the universe flow. So what do I need to do? I need to do whatever the universe tells me I need to do. And the universe speaks in a lot of different ways. And so, but there's a lot that comes around that, because I talk about the idea of people being institutionalized and, being working and not having the ability to think outside of what life would be like if they weren't working. And so it puts me in a spot where I challenge those people to say, are you not ever going to be able to retire because the facts tell you that, or because that's what you've told yourself? And I've just learned through my life that in the times that I was the most limited, it was really me limiting myself. And so I don't want you to limit yourself. If you do anything as a result of subscribing to my channel and listening to me talk, it's just believe in yourself. I believe in you. I believe in the underdog. I am the underdog, have been the underdog, and continue to try to show people that the underdog can win, because it's that trying to be like everybody else thing that screws everybody up. So a couple of things that as I wrap up, that I thought about were, I'm busier than I thought I would ever be. And anybody that retires is going to tell you the same thing, because there's a lot of things that are supposed to happen. And when you're working, you become a good procrastinator because you just don't have the time to do everything. But when you have the time to do things, Then when you wake up and say, what do I want to do today? And I challenge you, each of you out there, to do the same thing. Ask yourself the question, because I asked myself the question, what am I going to do today? And so today I knew that I was going to work on that front yard because I didn't want to do it when it was hot. So that took me about 3 hours. It was most of the day. I had to go to the nursery. I had to do a bunch of stuff. Tomorrow, I'm going to go to a buddy of mine's house and I'm going to help him with his garden because he's starting a sausage company and he wants to use fresh vegetables to season and to flavor his sausages. And so I'm going to help him as a master gardener, help him get his soil right and get everything conditioned the right way so he'll have harvest that will support his business. So those are the things that I have going on. But anything outside of that is extra. But it's just going with the flow. The only reason we feel stress and anxiety is because the wisdom of the universe is telling us to zig, and our own egos and desires are telling us to zag. And so when the zig goes against the zag, in the physical world, they call that friction. It's the same thing. So you end up with friction, and that friction, it comes in the form of stress and anxiety or any of those other feelings that they talk about on social media all the time and try to alleviate for everybody. The other thing I realized is when I was working, I felt like I had to be on all the time. As the head of any department or in somebody in a role that's incredibly visible, your life extends beyond just being at work. So as the head of HR for a decent sized organization, there's a chance that I'm going to be in town and I'm going to see people. So I can't go around acting a fool, because if I act a fool, then that might get back and then impact my livelihood. Now, I know it's not supposed to, and people are going to say, it shouldn't affect your livelihood because it's not work-related stuff. But when you get to a certain level of job, it's not just about the work that you do, it's about the perception of who you are, because part of what your responsibility is to get a large group of people to believe in your vision and move your vision forward. And those of you that are frustrated at work, a lot of times are frustrated because you have a boss with no vision. And so, but when you have vision and you have people that follow you and you're a leader, then you have to be on all the time. And when you're on all the time, you don't really realize that you're on all the time. You don't realize that you're on because you're just being what it is that you think you need to be and given that circumstance. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people that have this whole conversation about keeping it real. And I get it, but it's like Dave Chappelle, when keeping it real goes wrong. There are times, and I know this is going to hurt some people's feelings or violate some people's sensibilities, but there are times where we have to operate in a way that is best for others and not ourselves. So, for example, for those of you, and I want you to answer this. I'm going to challenge you. I'm challenging you. When you got married, if you're married, or let's say you ever got married, and you got registered for gifts, did you get registered because you needed all that shit they were going to send you and all that crap that you were going to get when you got married that you never used, that's sitting in your basement now or sitting in the attic or in the garage now? Or did you register for gifts so people would feel good about giving at a wedding, because that's what most people feel good about? Now, there are a lot of people that'll say, oh, no, I don't care what other people think. But if you live your life, and I've asked this question before, if you live your life in the absence of recognizing any social norms, then you are, by definition, a sociopath. And I would like to think that I don't have a bunch of sociopaths watching my channel. So the answer is, even if you didn't do that at your wedding, think about how many times you've behaved a certain way because you felt that was the assignment. And now I don't have that assignment. And when I started thinking that, a lot of people that I knew, they knew me because of who I was in the assignment. They knew me because even on my worst days, I still had to be on. They knew me as somebody who was always positive and always trying to find a solution and always going, always Johnny on the spot. Well, that's not me anymore. I still carry some of those characteristics because I value some of those characteristics, but I'm not on. I was just telling a neighbor of mine, if you ring my doorbell and I'm not expecting you, I may not answer the door, because it really depends on what it is that I'm trying to do on that day. But now that I don't have to be on, I'm able to relax, sleep longer, sleep less, lose weight. All of those things get a little bit easier because I don't have the stress of having to be anything to anybody. So I could really walk around with a middle finger t-shirt and say F everybody, and there's nothing anybody can do. Now, if anybody has a t-shirt like that and they want to send it to me, I wear a 2XLT because I do want to find a shirt that has a middle finger on the front that I can walk around with. I know it sounds bad, but it's kind of cliche. So my wife's going to shake her head when she sees this video, but I don't have to be on. So, the other thing I did, the third thing was I started to make different observations about people, time, vacations, and everything else. Insofar as understanding, I'll give you an example. I was talking to my sister today, and so my sister was telling me that she was on a podcast. And so she was on this podcast, and I was frustrated because she said, well, the podcast is about, letting go. So I said, okay, so is it letting go from a death in the family? Is it letting go from divorce? Is it letting go from estranged children? Is it letting go? What's it letting go from? And she didn't know. And I said, well, you're going to do a podcast. You're going to be on a radio show that is broadcast to the entire world. The least that a person can do is have respect for your time and let you know specifically what the topic is. Because the whole, oh yeah, just show up and we'll talk about whatever, that doesn't really work when grown folks are having a conversation. You got to have some level of structure. And I told her that I couldn't do something like that because what I'm not going to do, and all of this laissez-faire, life is good situation, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to let somebody waste my time. If you're wasting my time, I'm out. Deuces. I'm out. Not dealing with it, because people only do that when they feel like they can. If people really need what it is that you're going to deliver and they value your time, then bet your bottom dollar they're going to know what it is they need you to do 100% of the time. And so, but I find myself looking around and seeing how much people give their time away, or how much people don't necessarily value their time that same way. And it just befuddles me. Or, we talked a little bit about vacations and, and again, time, I'm going to say this again, time is your most valuable resource. What did I just say? Time is what? Your most valuable resource. What's your most valuable resource? Time. Because once you get to 50, around 50, you've got most of us. I know there was a sister, somebody or another, some nun somewhere who was 116 years old that died. That was the oldest person on earth. She just died today, or within the last couple of days. But the reality is, for most of us, once we hit 50, we're on the short side of the grave. So we got to master it. We got to make sure that we take all of the time that we have and maximize every moment, because we don't know how many moments we have, and we want to make sure that every moment that we do have is a good one. And then the last one is I really had been thinking about what my retirement is about, and past and kind of where I came from, but really more importantly, kind of the present and in the future. You never really hear me talk about. No, you know what? Let me stop lying. I do talk about the past because that's how I help people gain some perspective. But I don't sit. My car is not parked in the past. My car is parked in the future. My car is parked in, how do I maximize this thing I have called life? All of those days that I woke up and did not feel like going to work and said, I wish I didn't have to go to work. My dreams have been answered and I'm not going to work. So what am I going to do with that? And most of my conversations are, how do you get past that? If there's a problem, I'll solve it. Check out the mic and the DJ resolves it. Ice, ice, baby. I hate that song, but it was so apropos, so sincere. But I'm always thinking about, what can we do to move forward or to jump off of this situation onto the next situation? What is it that we can learn from whatever this situation is that we're dealing with? And how do we move forward? Because a lot of people have a lot of regret. What are some of the things you regret? Tell me in the comments. But a lot of people have a lot of regret. And so what they do in their retirement is they'll try to litigate those regrets. And the reality is, is we can't change what's happened in the past. And there's a lot of things that I look back and I say, if I had a chance to do them again, I'd do them different. So I learned from it in that point. But in terms of going back and feeling sad about it, yeah, not the kid. I'm just not that guy. So that's about all I had for this week. I just wanted to share with you some weekly reflections. One question I have for you: do you like the free flow type of conversation? Do you prefer more structured topics, or do you like things kind of in the middle between the two? Part of what I struggle with is I want to make sure that whatever content I provide to you is useful and interesting to you. The life that I've lived is the life that I lived and isn't that exciting to me. But I do recognize I've had the opportunity to do some things that others haven't. And so I don't want to make the mistake of overlooking something that might be useful to you, because in my mind, I don't perceive that as being useful because it was my own life, or it doesn't stand out to me as useful. So let me know where you are, because if we need to do more of the educational stuff, then we'll do more of the educational stuff. If we need to just do more kind of free flowing and saying, look, this is what early retirees are thinking, or at least this is what early retiree is thinking, then then I can change that. Or we can just keep doing what we're doing, because, the other reality is we got 780 people that are subscribed to the channel that are saying, Sabado, I like what you're doing and I like the information and it's inspiring. So if that's good enough, if I'm filling your cup with doing that, then that's great, because that's what I want to do. Because again, it's not about me, it's about you. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and cut this short, but I want to leave you with this one tidbit. And I've said it before, and I'm going to continue to say it. It's never my expectation that all of us retire early. And the goal of this channel is not to try to tell people to retire early. The goal of this channel is that we all have a responsibility to ourselves and the people in our lives to live our best life. And so as long as we're doing that, I got nothing to say. And if there's something that I can do to help you live your best life, let me know. See what I can do. Brother might be able to hook you up. So on that note, have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.